Let me tell you guys, there is one jinn in particular that will ruin a marriage faster than the rest. In fact, his whole job is to destroy marriages better than the corn industry. There is no energy in existence that will destroy a marriage faster than this jinn. The name of this jinn is Asmodeus. Now, there's also a couple other ones that tie into it, but the energy is the same, the egregore is the same. They all represent the exact same thing. Now you can find Asmodeus in literally every single religion. Every single religion has something based around Asmodee, Ashmedai. You even have it in the Torah. The Tiny Hat Club people believe in this as well. It's spoken about with the Christians. You can find it in the Lesser Key of Solomon. Asmodee, Ashmedai, Asmodeus is very, very deep in all religious text and is one of the oldest characters that has ever been spoken about. When it comes to the jinn, when it comes to the paranormal, he has his foundation stronger than everything else. But with the story of Asmodeus, this is where you can really see the energy and the aspect of the gray area of the jinn. The fact that they have free will. The fact that they can kind of do good things sometimes. They're not inherently evil. They're not created to be bad. But they have a purpose. They have a job to serve. And the big job that he has is testing humanity and testing humans on their ability to be correct in a marriage, to do the right things. And this jinn in particular, I know very well. Before I left the occult, I was in direct dedication with this one for multiple years. I speed ran my test. So let me explain a little bit so you guys understand like how I went down this path and why I went down this path and my perspective on it, what I found to be true while doing these rituals and different workings. And it blows my mind because the exact things I found to be true before reverting to Islam is still true today. Islam just solidified the things that I already knew to be true in the past. So all these jinn, all these demons in the Lesser Key of Solomon, they represent an energy, a test, a fitna. I believe I'm pronouncing it correctly. Don't hang me if I'm saying this wrong, but the fitna, your trial, your test. And every human ever created has their own set of tests and their own set of trials. Now these jinn, their job is to be that test, to lead you towards these temptations, to pull you in this bad direction. So some of you guys have already read it, but if you go through the Lesser Key of Solomon, you can see directly what they're in charge of, what they're trying to do, the tests that they unfold to the human race. And when you see Asmodeus, Ashmedai, Asmodee, I don't care what name people want to use, it's all the same spirit, it's all the same being at the end of the day. But his test is that. It is romantic temptation. I'm trying to choose my words carefully because of terms of service and stuff, but it's romantic temptation. It tries to get people to cheat on their spouse. Now, here's the crazy thing about this fitna, this test, and I'm sure some of you guys know this, but whenever you are faced with these tests and these challenges and you overcome them, you are rewarded in the thing that is relevant to that test. So for example, if you are test with the succubus, right? Say you're in a marriage or you're in a relationship or you even just have somebody that you're focused on that you want to be with in life. And then somebody else comes through, somebody very tempting. It could be man, it could be woman, it doesn't matter. Very tempting, very physically romantic. If you fall for that, the thing you want will be gone. If you fall for that temptation, you will be disciplined. You will be in trouble. You're not allowed to do that. So if you fall to that temptation and you run to that direction and you hook up with that person, that energy exchange you have from that hookup is going to discipline you. You will be punished. Your marriage will be delayed. And if not, maybe canceled. And this is really how it works. I've seen it over and over and over again. Now, each individual person has their own tests though. So some people, it may be greed, it may be gluttony, it may be romantic. It doesn't matter. Like everybody has their own things. You can look at like the 7 deadly sins, or multiple religions have their own way to explain this. But everybody's tested on these sins. Everybody's tested on these harams, and these deities that exist are in charge of our tests. They're in charge of creating the test for these things, and that is the job of Iblis. He runs all these jinns, he runs the shaitan, and he tells them what to do. So it comes from Iblis, and he breaks it down into these other jinn, and all these other jinn create all these tests. They have a very structured system. Now, I know this because Asmodeus was my test. I'm not going to go into a lot of details on the crap I used to do, but one, I've never cheated in my life. I never was that kind of person, but whenever it came to like physical romance, I was just jumping around. I wouldn't stay with one person. And a lot of my relationships when I was younger, I was with multiple people at once, like never cheating, never lying about it, but that's just how I lived. That was my test, and I was failing it. I was failing it so horribly. Now, whenever I got into the occult and I started studying these things and I learned this concept and I learned this idea of all these tests, it stood out to me. It was blatantly obvious what my test was. And this was also the same test of my father as well. So it was really interesting to see it play out from like an occultist, from a spiritual perspective. It was really mind-blowing watching it all happen. And it's very obvious to you. I think everybody knows what their test is. Everybody's aware of the things they need to not do. Everybody is aware of the challenges that they face. So the thing that many occultists don't know is whenever you work with these deities, all you're doing is speedrunning your test. You're making your test a billion times harder, a billion times more intense. So let me tell you, when I started working with Asmodee, it was insane. I was tested with temptation that you guys wouldn't believe. It was nonstop. And because it was so nonstop and because it was so intense, I didn't get involved in it. I wanted nothing to do with it. I was so hurt emotionally. All I wanted to do was be married, and it's the same today. Some I haven't really talked about publicly, but that's how I was feeling at that time. Because this test was so intense, I saw how disgusting it was. I saw how horrible it was. And I didn't want anything to do with that. I didn't want that surface level crap that America teaches us. And once you get to that mindset and you get past your test, you start getting rewarded in the thing that's similar to it, right? So say your test is gluttony, you have an issue with food and you can't contain yourself around food and it's so tempting and you just always want to eat sweet rolls and all kinds of crazy crap. If you're able to break that, I can guarantee you would be like a supermodel or something. You're going to get into such great physical shape that you will look so good or be so healthy to a level that you never would have imagined. This is just how it works. You can see this all the time. You can see it from people that lose 300 pounds. I mean, these people are huge. They're just morbidly obese. They're extremely ill. And then overnight, they just get in shape. And you look at these people and like, how did you lose 300 pounds? It's like they beat their test. They beat the thing that they were tested on and they were able to overcome it, and now they're being rewarded. Now they have great health. Now they can run marathons, and you can see them do all kinds of crazy stuff. Or for another example, somebody who's extremely greedy. They're greedy by nature, but they never have any money. They're broke and all they think about is money all the time. They're consumed with it and they never give anybody anything at all. When they start donating to others, that's when money shows up into their life. When they start helping out others financially and they disconnect from that money, that's when it comes into their life. You can see this all the time. There's tons of stories. We have the internet. Like there's unlimited amount of videos of people explaining these things that they overcame, they went through. And then you could see their life now and how great their life has become ever since they did this shift, ever since they overcame their fitna. Now, once you do overcome these tests and you are rewarded on them, you're going to continuously get tested. You're going to be tested multiple times after that. It doesn't just go away. Now, things will become very easy for you. You will be rewarded. But throughout the reward, you will be tested. Every once in a while, it'll give you a little nudge, a little poke to see if it's really there, to see if you held that mentality, to see if you really made those changes and if those changes are permanent. So now that I've explained your test and how these jinn work and the actual structure that they fall under, now let's get back to the marriage portion and Asmodeus. So Asmodeus comes from the story of Sarah. This is one of the earliest stories ever from him. And this is where it's kind of a gray area, where it's like us as humans, we can kind of understand why he does the things he does. Asmodeus falls in love with this woman, Sarah, and has this immense love. Like, it's uncontrollable for him. But Asmodeus is also extremely jealous. Now, Sarah is a human. Asmodeus is a jinn. Plenty of people say he's like king of the jinn, or king of a certain class of jinn, essentially, like a certain group of them. Well, Sarah falls in love. She falls in love and she gets married. And at the night of her wedding, her husband would switch up and try to physically advance on her in a way that she wasn't comfortable with. Now, whenever this would happen, every single time, Asmodeus would take off his head. And this happened 7-8 times. I can't remember the exact number. I should pull it up, but you guys can look it up afterwards. It's like 7 or 8 times this woman, Sarah, goes to get married and Asmodeus has to remove that man. Every single time. Every single time he would switch up on her, Asmodeus would take off his head, would end that guy immediately. So is that a bad thing? I don't know. That's up to you guys to decide, but it is a thing that you could justify. Now, what happens eventually is an angel goes to one of the men, another man that falls in love with Sarah. She's in love with him. They go to get married, and the angel warns this man and tells this man, hey, on the night of the wedding, don't do this. Don't get physically romantic with her. Asmodeus is watching. He's extremely jealous, and he's extremely protective over this woman. Do not do this thing. And so the man listens. And because this man listened, they were able to get married, and they stayed married. Nothing happened to that man. He was never harmed. But think about this for a second. If that man had fallen to temptation, he would have lost his life. He would have entirely lost his life, not just his love, but he would have lost everything. If you fall to temptations, you will lose. You will lose everything. Everything will be stripped away from you until you learn the lesson. And so, guys, if you are in a marriage, if you guys are married or you guys are involved in someone, don't mess up. Don't look away. I've seen this too much, and it's very difficult. I get that. But in this country, in America, in the West, it is too far. Too many people are cheating. Too many people are looking in a different direction. Too many people are destroying a marriage that could be very beautiful. And this is the test of Asmodeus. This is what he's doing. He's testing all these people in this country to see, are they going to be worth the marriage? Are they really worth staying with that person? Is it really worth it? And if they mess up, that marriage will fail. The divorce rate will continue to get higher. There'll be just another statistic. And I don't want anybody to be another statistic. This is disgusting. And regardless of what your test is, I do firmly believe you will be able to identify it. You'll be able to see the things you struggle with and the challenges you have in life. But whenever it comes to marriage, that's a big deal. There is something very specific about the jinn when it comes to marriage. There is a hadith. Now, some of you guys know this. I'm not the biggest fan of a lot of the hadith. I'm kind of against a lot of it. It's causing a lot of issues, but there is some very beautiful hadith as well, some that teach us very good lessons. Now, there's a hadith that talks about this. It talks about how Iblis rewards the jinn the most for the ones who destroyed the marriage. That is his favorite thing. Out of all the things that he can have the shaitan do, ending the marriage is what he brings the jinn closest to. That's the jinn he holds to the highest ranking. It's the ones who end marriage. And in this hadith, it talks about how Iblis has his throne upon water, upon the ocean, and he sends out his troops. Now, one of the shaitan come back to him and they say, hey, I did such and such. I did this. And he replies back to that jinn, he says, you did nothing at all. But another jinn, another shaitan comes to him after that and says, hey, I didn't leave until I ended a marriage. I ended a marriage between husband and wife. I destroyed this marriage. Iblis, I just don't like to say the name correctly, turns to this shaitan and brings him close and tells him he had done well. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind, because this is something that the shaitan hold to the highest degree. This is one of their biggest goals, their biggest challenges is to destroy marriages. And the one that's best at that is Asmodeus, is Asmodai, is Asmodee. So I just wanted to warn you guys and get this out there. This is something I've had in the back of my mind for quite some time, and I think now is the time to kind of speak on it, speak on individual jinn and what they do and how they work. So thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for joining another one of my rant and rambles. I have closed the January group. We're already in there. The Fix Your Life group is already happening every single Thursday, but I'm going to open up the December one. I've had a good time doing this. I like meeting everybody. It's a lot of fun. I'm going to reduce the price a little bit on it too. And then I'll drop a promo code in the description for everybody. So if you guys want to get in, we do a live stream on Zoom every single Thursday where we speak and we go over these things, where I go over these 7 rules or these 7 disciplines I use to put my life back together, to get myself out of this pit, to get myself out of this hole, to identify my own self-identity traits, how to be happy again in life, how to be fulfilled, how to be content, how to communicate better, how to speak, how to learn faster, how to be more clever. All these things I go over it. My whole transformation I'm giving back to you guys. So if you guys want to work one-on-one, or not one-on-one, but it's a small group with me directly, I'll put the link in the bio. I'll also give you guys a promo code on that. So thank you guys. I wish you the best.